Hello, everyone. It is I, Noah, here to tell you all about the day. Let's go ahead and see what happened. So, here's what I remember. I was woken up at 8:30 and asked by my mom to move my car out of the way because I was parked behind her. So, I slipped on my shoes, I went into my car, I drove out of the way and off to the side on the other side of the driveway, kind of like this. And that's when she said goodbye. I said goodbye back. I told her that I loved her. And then she drove off to work. I then went into my room and I went to sleep. I didn't wake up again until 12 in the afternoon, so it was quite late. I was shocked looking at the time, thinking, wow, I really slept in that long. What am I gonna do? So here's what I did. I decided to get up out of my bed, and then I greeted our family friend. I told them, hey, I'm thinking about going to this place to get some nachos. They told me I made a roast. I could chop up the roast and serve up some tacos for us. And then I said, well, I had my mind already set for this here nacho place, so I was going to go there. But thank you for the offer. And then they were like, all right. So after we had that conversation, I opened the freezer, I grabbed my Haagen-Dazs white chocolate truffle and raspberry puree ice cream, and I made a cup of coffee, and I went into my room, and there in my room, I turned on the television. I then turned on the PlayStation 4 connected to my CRT television, and then I went onto the YouTube app, and there before me stood a new video from the YouTube channel, Dan Dingle. I clicked on that bad boy, and lo and behold, Dan Dingle was using up an old AI video generation model where it extends the sides of the screen, or the up and bottom portions of the screen, to make it seem like it goes on forever. And it was basically just messing around with it and going through different videos and different angles to see what the generation would drum up. There was lots of nightmare fuel in the video. Very terrifying, unforgettable stuff. He said a comment that I think I agree with. I missed this era of AI where it was just not good yet. So it was just pure nightmare fuel. Now it's getting so good it's getting hard to know what's real and what isn't. I tend to agree. I think that the nightmare fuel era of AI generated videos was weirdly a lot of fun because you knew that it was phony baloney, but there was just something bizarrely charming about how bad it was. Kind of like if your dreams were adapted into a video. But moving along, after I finished eating my ice cream and watching that video and drinking my coffee, I thought to myself, it's time to go and get those nachos. So, I went in my car, I drove off, I arrived at the nacho place, I walked in line. It was one of those places where they ask you what you want on your dish. I remember just saying loaded nachos, and then when I got to the meat area, they asked me what meat. I said carne asada. And then after that, they asked, oh, did you want any greenery or anything like this on your nachos? And then I kept on wanting to say cilantro when I was looking at the cilantro, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't remember what that green stuff was called. It's like my mind completely blanked out on that. It was Honestly, very embarrassing. So I just said guacamole, and they gave me the guacamole. I paid for the meal in cash, and then I went out and drove home with it. And when I arrived home, I went in my room, I switched to a new video. This is the one that I was continuing to watch by Red Letter Media. It was the video about them reacting to Life Force, and basically how it was a very, very dumb movie. And then they moved on to their final movie, and I'm forgetting the name of this one, but it stars Chuck Norris. And apparently, one of the co-hosts, Rich Evans, decided to choose that specific film because he had pre-watched little elements of it, trying to find parts that he thought would make for great viewing in a group, and he saw a few things that he thought were hilarious, so he chose it based on that reasoning. The only problem was, the movie itself tries to be a serious, dramatic film on top of being a action schlock flick. So it ends up being everything and nothing at the same time. A quantum film indeed. Well, I was getting really stuffed after eating just even half of that nacho meal, but for some reason I decided to push through and finish all of it. I did it because I don't really like leftover nachos because the chips get all soggy. Gotta be honest, I didn't really enjoy it that much. I thought the carne asada, whatever flavoring they put in it, was way too citrusy, way too limey tasting. And I don't know about you, but I like my meat to taste, I don't know, not as citrusy, a little more savory perhaps. However I like it, I like it the way I'm trying to describe it more than what it ended up tasting like. So, wasn't a huge fan of that. And for whatever reason, I wasn't even super hungry when I was eating it, which was blowing my mind because, I mean, I literally, had nothing but a little bit of leftover ice cream before that. But for whatever reason, when I started eating it, I felt like I wasn't really that hungry. So that kind of tripped me up, not gonna lie. Well, anyways, after about a while of watching the video, I then decided to pause it, and I just had this long conversation with Claude about the potential of Q-Day, what it might have on people's electronics, and if people don't know what Q-Day is, it's basically when quantum computers become commercially usable, and so services need to have their online security ramped up in order to deal with some of the more difficult encryption that quantum's going to require. Because of how powerful quantum computing is, it could easily destroy all of the current encryption we have with all of our modern electronics today. So I thought to myself, what if I invested in companies that had to do with quantum security? And I asked two chatbots, Gemini said, yeah, that's great. Then I asked Claude Opus 5, and he said, well, you don't really have to worry about that because the companies already, are on the investments that you have decided to work on. So when I heard that, I was like, well, I guess I don't have to worry about that anymore. I even had a long conversation with my sister about it before finding out that information, so when I did let her know, she was like, oh, that's cool. I then needed to get dressed and ready for work. And by the way, I completely forgot, but around the time I returned with the nachos, I threw some dirty clothes in the laundry and had it washed, and around the time I was finishing up the Red Letter Media video, I decided to put the clothes I had just finished being washed into the dryer. And around the time I finished doing that quantum research, had a chat with my sister and got ready for work, I took out the clothes that was in the dryer and put it on my bed. I moved it off of my bed and somewhere off camera so it's not messing up the frame. Alright, well, moving along from that, I needed to leave for work, so I took a soda with me. I also took a bag of chips, and I drove off. When I arrived at work, I got into the store, I punched in, I greeted everyone, and I got straight to sweeping. I swept everywhere. The break room, the produce, the store floor. It was a lot of sweeping, a lot of restroom checking, and a lot of working. Anything interesting to say about today? Oh, not really. I can't really think of an interesting conversation I had or anything of that nature, so I'm not going to really bring it up. Yeah. I remember when I was sweeping in the break room, one of my coworkers wanted to talk about film composers and that inspired other film composers, so I guess that was kind of cool. Well, anywho, my first break, I decided to use it doing a little bit of financial research with Claude, and after doing that research, I went back into the store. I took out all the trashes, both the front end, the bathroom, the break room, the janitors, and the receiving trash. I almost forgot to mention this too. There were 2 instances of soda falling on the floor and breaking and causing a spilled mess that I needed to clean up to ensure no one would slip and fall. That required spill magic, a broom, and a trash bin, and it worked out quite nicely. Then, finally, after that, I remember, wait a minute, I've had this on me the whole time. I just realized I didn't put the receiver on my phone in order to get the audio to sound good. Well, this is quite embarrassing now, isn't it? I've been using the onboard mic this whole time. Well, sorry for the downgrade in audio, people. Anywho, well, after that whole experience of taking out the trash, I then punched out for my lunch. I decided to get some mac and cheese, half a pound of mac and cheese, 2 chicken wings, and I brought those with me upstairs with a chocolate bar. It was called an awake chocolate bar because they put caffeine in the chocolate bar, which was equivalent to 1 cup of coffee. I went upstairs. I had this meal while I was watching a video. I'm trying to remember exactly what the video was. For some reason, I'm having trouble remembering it right now. On YouTube, searched it up. Can't say, sorry about that. Alright, well, moving along. After I was done eating and watching, I threw away the things I used. I washed my hands. I went downstairs. I punched back in. I finished taking out the rest of the trash. I put on the bags on a U-boat to bring up to the front to fill out each check stand. When I arrived, it was non-stop customers for 3 hours straight. I swear to you, lots of customers. When I found my opening to finally fill up the check stands, I took it swiftly, filled every single check stand up as quickly as I could, and then I took out the paper boxes into the receiving area, and after that, I remember I brought in the paper towels, distributed them evenly between each of the check stands, wiped down all of the check stands as best as I could, and then I cleared lot. I brought in the signs, and carts. I closed the produce blinds. I wiped down check stand 4, the final one. I had a fun conversation with a coworker who works at night and my co-manager. I punched out. I grabbed my can upstairs that I was going to use to recycle, and another can that I left up there that I forgot to take with me the previous day. I said goodbye to my coworker, my co-manager. I went in my car. I drove home. When I arrived home, I got into a really deep conversation about finances with both Claude and Google Gemini. Lasted like 2 hours. And then I decided to analyze my previous videos to see what was done throughout the month and what could be improved upon. It was a very interesting study. And after that, I went into the house, got a call from my mom, let her know I was okay. It was just chilling in my car. Then I decided to make, my sister chopped up some pineapple. I had that. Then I had some popcorn. I watched a video on YouTube of a guy reviewing this movie called Little Nicky starring Adam Sandler. It looked like one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen in my whole life. I hope to goodness I never watched that movie because it looks so stupid. And then after that, I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I ate that with a cup of coffee for some reason. Not exactly sure why I did that so late at night. And then, after all of that, I decided to make this video. So, that's the day in a nutshell, and tomorrow I have off. So, thank you for tuning in. I very much appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.